The pastor asked if anyone in the congregation would like to express praise for an answered prayer. Mary stood and walked to the podium. She said, "I have some praise. 2 months ago, my husband, Frank, had a terrible bicycle accident and his scrotum was completely crushed. The pain was excruciating and the doctors didn't know if they could help him." You could hear a rustling sound as the men in the congregation crossed their legs, imagining the pain that poor Frank must have experienced. "Frank was unable to hold me or the children," she went on, "and every move caused him terrible pain. We prayed as the doctors performed a delicate operation, and it turned out they were able to piece together the crushed remnants of Frank's scrotum and wrap wire around it to hold it in place with metal staples." Again, the men in the congregation cringed and squirmed uncomfortably as they imagined the horrible surgery performed on Frank. "Now," she announced in a quivering voice, "thank the Lord Frank is out of the hospital, and the doctors say that with time, his scrotum should recover completely." All the men sighed with unified relief. The pastor rose and tentatively asked if anyone else had something to say. A man stood up and walked slowly to the podium. He said, "I'm Frank." The entire congregation held its breath. "I just want to tell my wife that the word is sternum." A traveler once visited a small village in the countryside. At the local bar, someone asked him if he was married. "I'm divorced, actually. I never could find a woman I didn't end up fighting with all the time," he replied. The local man said, "Then you should go talk to the old couple that lives on the hill outside the village. Rumor has it that they've been married over 60 years, and they've never fought this whole time." "What? That's impossible. Everyone has fights," exclaimed the traveler. But the locals swore to him it was the truth and nothing but. The traveler just had to check it out. In the morning, he knocked on the door of the little house on the hill and was immediately welcomed by the husband, who invited him in for tea. After the traveler explained why he came to see him, the man smiled and nodded. "It's true, we never fight. Please," begged the traveler, "can you tell me your secret?" "Well," said the old man, "it all started about 60 years ago, right after the wedding. We were riding our mule back to town and walking it down the street when it tripped over a stone. My wife said to him, 'That's one.' We kept crying. And he tripped again on another stone, which made my wife immediately say, 'That's two.' 2 minutes later, the mule trips over a stone again. My wife said, 'That's three.' She pulled out a gun I never knew she had and shot it in the head without thinking twice. I was shocked and yelled at her, 'What the heck do you think you're doing? We needed a mule. Are you crazy?' My wife looked me straight in the eye and said, 'That's one, and we haven't had a fight since.'" A young man was inspired to help out with his church's fundraiser. He asked the preacher if he could participate in the door-to-door selling of Bibles. The preacher agreed, but knowing the young man had a bad stutter, only gave him 3 Bibles to sell. The following day, the young man returned asking for more. The preacher gave him another 5 Bibles. The following day, the preacher gave him another 10. By the end of the week, the young man broke the church's all-time record for the highest number of Bible sales in 1 week. The preacher believed that divine intervention had occurred. He was dumbfounded and had to know the young man's secret. So the preacher asked the young man how he was able to sell so many Bibles in such a short amount of time. The young man smiled and said, "I asked them if they wanted to buy a Bible or have Mahami read it to them." As Jack was marrying Jill, his father gave him some advice. "Son, when I got married to your mother, the first thing I did when we got home was strip her naked and took off my pants. Then I gave them to your mother and told her to try them on, which she did. They were huge on her. and she said that she couldn't wear them because they were too large. I said to her, "Of course they are too big for you. I wear the pants in this family, and I always will." Ever since that day, we have never had a single problem. Jack took his dad's advice and did the same thing to his wife on his wedding night. Then, Jill took off her panties and gave them to Jack. "Try these on," she said. Jack went along with it and tried them on, but they were far too small. "What's the point of this?" "I can't get into your panties," said Jack. "Exactly," Jill replied, "and if you don't change your attitude, you never will." Joe was on holiday in Africa. Going through the African bush, he encountered a young bull elephant with its front leg raised, and it was bleeding on the ground. Approaching carefully, Joe saw a piece of wood stuck in the elephant's foot. Joe patted the elephant's leg and gently pulled the wood out with pliers. The elephant carefully placed its injured foot back on the ground. The elephant turned to Joe and stared at him for some time. Then the large elephant quietly walked away with a slight limp. Years later, Joe visited a park zoo. As he approached the elephants, one large elephant turned and came out toward Joe. When the elephant got to the fence, it stared at Joe for a long time, even though other people were standing next to him. The elephant repeatedly lifted one of its front feet off the ground in a pattern. Remembering the encounter years ago, Joe wondered if this was the same elephant. He thought about it, then bravely climbed over the railing and made his way toward the elephant. The elephant trumpeted once more, then slowly wrapped its trunk around one of Joe's legs and slammed him against the railing, breaking most of the bones in his body. Joe remarked in the ambulance, "It probably wasn't the same fucking elephant." Joe was 75 years old and extremely wealthy. His wife had died years ago, and he belonged to an expensive and very exclusive golf country club. One day, he walked into the clubhouse with a gorgeous and extremely sexy 22-year-old blonde. They turned everyone's heads as they strolled into the bar. She was draping herself all over Joe, giving him her complete and undivided attention. His friends at the club were astonished. They couldn't believe their eyes. When the blonde got up to visit the ladies' room, they asked Joe, "How the hell did you manage to get her as your girlfriend?" "Oh, she's not my girlfriend," Joe replied. "She's my wife." They couldn't believe that, and one asked, "Married? Wow, how did you do that?" "Well, truth be told, I lied a bit about my age." "What? Oh, I see. You're trying to tell us you told her you were only 50, and that beautiful creature believed you?" Joe smiled and said, "Not at all. I told her I was 95.